Right, we're going to call this part 2 or episode 2 of Overwintering. Just some prep jobs before the real cold sets in. So I've done a video a couple of days ago about just going around, looking what tenders you've got planted out, what you want to save, dig up, bring in, that sort of thing. So this is going to be part 2. So we've got some potted plants here. These are a combination of stuff that's been planted out plus just stuff in pots that are out over the summer or over the growing season. So these are things that are going to come indoors. And disclosure, I haven't actually dug up any tenders yet. I've got to go out and get some compost to do that. But I've got, for demonstration purposes, a colocasia here, which is coal miner, which was just in the bog filter in a tiny little pot, so I just pulled that out to give you an idea. So you don't want a big pot for colocasia or alocasia over winter, because they're just going to, bigger pot, it will hold on to more water, more chance of root rot in low light conditions, probably cooler temperatures. You don't want to be watering these a lot at all, and you don't want water sitting in a big pot rotting the roots. So yeah, you can get away with a very small pot. I will be cutting the roots off them as well. Right, so that's sort of carrying on from the video we done a couple of days back about digging stuff out and potting up. So the second part is stuff that we had, plants in pots just sort of tucked in the border, or in the case of this fireball bromeliad, that was on a tree trunk or one of the trunks of a Trachycarpus. Yeah, so nighttime temps is going to be getting cool over the next, or especially over the weekend. We're going to get down to 5 degrees at night, which is not going to kill these plants, but still, if you're going to bring them in anyway, that's probably a good time to do it. And this is obviously going to depend on where you are in the country and what sort of forecast, what temperatures you're expecting. But I think anything under 5 or 6 degrees, bring it in. Right, so we've got a selection of plants here, so sort of a good little sort of spectrum of different plants and what I'm going to do with them. We've got a couple of palms. So we've got a Rhapis excelsior, or lady palm, which is an excellent indoor palm. Often see them sold as house plants because they do rather well indoors. They can tolerate dry conditions and sort of low light. This one has got a bit of sunburnt. I actually got all that last year, and I've kept it in the shade this year. So we've had some nice new growth out of it, albeit a bit yellowy. But that has been growing, but that's going to come in. I'm not going to leave that out. That would, last year I did keep it or just frost free in the summer house, and absolutely fine. But I tend to find they do better indoors, you know, that you'll still get a bit of growth over winter on them. Yeah, on a side note, that has been kicking out a few little ones as well, so that is a sort of clumping palm, quite a nice palm. But yeah, that's going to come indoors as a nice house plant. Another classic is the parlour palm. So this is one that I bought cheap a few years back and sort of half died, and really I just chucked it outside in the spring and thought, well, we'll let it take its chances, and it's perked up a bit anyway, so we'll bring that in as a house plant. Perfectly good little house plant, that one. So we're going to try and do a broad spectrum. So yeah, standard house plant stuff for the palms. You know, not overwatering them, just keep them on the dry side, give them a good natural light, indirect, standard stuff. We've got a little fern here. This is I forget the actual name of it. I'm sure Silver Lady. It's a mini tree fern. You can see it's starting to get a little bit of a trunk on it. And again, these are not hardy, so that's going to come in. These do get quite nice little chunks on in time. I think they can get over a foot, maybe 2 foot, not quite sure. But nice little miniature tree fern nonetheless. That's put on a lot of growth over the summer, because to be fair, that nearly defoliated last year. I did keep it cool, so I'm going to keep it as a standard sort of houseplant situation. Not too close to a window, just indirect light and moderate water again. When it comes to bromeliads, this one's quite a hardy one. It's getting a bit top heavy now. I have to cut some of these off. This is a fireball one, which, as we can see, I started off with one sort of rosette head on it, and over the few years I've had it, we've probably got about 20 heads on that, so I'm going to have to thin them out a bit. But I have got a plan for that next year, but I won't go into it now. Yeah, so that again I'll keep dry and keep in the conservatory, that one, so that can take the cold as long as it sort of stays between, or as long as it don't get sort of below 4 degrees. That's absolutely fine. So we'll just keep it pretty much dry, only give it a drop of water on the milder days of winter. So yeah, just have a look around the borders. Sometimes I mean, this one is a classic example. This is tucked right in the foliage, and I've totally forgot about it, so it weren't until I was sort of rummaging about and came across it. So it's easy to forget the little odd plant here and there. And then we've got a giant bird of paradise here. This could be brought in as a house plant. Could sort of tidy up the old leaves and just keep the 3 good ones in the centre and bring it in as a house plant, but I'm going to be keeping that. They're actually quite good as long as they're kept frost free. You can have them in a greenhouse, garage. I'm going to be keeping this in the hothouse, just frost free, and that'll be absolutely fine. It won't grow any, and we'll keep it dry, and that'll just be sitting dormant over winter until temperatures warm up again. So yeah, so I had a few people asking me about the colocasia. So going back to this to finish up on, because this is what I'd sort of done the original video on a couple of days ago, mainly sort of colocasia and alocasia, but it sort of goes for any tropical tenders that they don't make good house plants. So the situation is they want sort of humidity, and if you use central heating, obviously that dries the air out, so you want to avoid being on top of a radiator or too close to a radiator. You really want good light, because obviously winter daylight is limited, so every drop of light you can get is a bonus. So kitchen and bathroom would be the ideal place, where the sort of slightly higher humidity rooms. Failing that, you know, the chances are they might well go dormant with the lower light levels and lack of humidity. You don't want to keep watering them. If they start dying off, don't keep watering them, think they're going to come back, because you'll rot them out. So if they start going dormant, just let them go dormant and keep them somewhere cool and dry, and they'll probably start off again next year. But if I am going to keep some of these growing, just ticking over, not growing in full growth, and I have got a indoor grow tent DIY job. I will be doing a video on that another day, which I do every year for my sort of tropical palms, and invariably I end up putting some colocasias in there as well, some of the more fussy ones. So we'll see what that looks like when we look into that another day. So yeah, good time to get your houseplants in before it gets too cold, or tender tropicals, whichever you want to call them. So we will continue with the overwintering theme for the next few videos, and we'll start looking at protecting some of the more tender plants stroke palms in situ. So as they're planted, we'll either build shelters over them, or adapt accordingly to weather conditions by fleece and whatever. I mean, a lot of plants don't like being fleeced all winter, so we won't try and avoid going down that route. But anyway, right, so I thought we'd just do a sort of a conclusion to the part 2 of the first video I done. So that's just a selection of plants. I'm sure you've got lots of other different types of plants. Like I say, alocasias, I've already brought them in a couple of weeks ago. They are actually in the hothouse at the moment, but I am going to be going through the hothouse another day and pulling out all the tropical stuff that I want to keep growing and take them into the grow tent indoors, and everything else will hopefully go dormant and spring into life next year. Right, so in conclusion, it's just common houseplant stuff really. Anything you've got outside, you know, what you've been watering every day, every other day, you can forget that in the house. You need to really need to be careful with your watering. Either stick your finger in the soil, give the pot a lift, see how light it is, or get one of these water meter or water moisture testers. These are quite a good thing. They're quite cheap, and yeah, take the guesswork out of it. Just don't water. Just don't have in your head a watering regime, because every plant's going to be different. Pot sizes are going to play a big role in how quick the plant dries out. Literally, a good rule of thumb is everything, let it pretty much dry out 90% before you water it again, and you're going to avoid root rot by too much water sitting around the roots. And that'll go from, like I say, most plants. You've got to remember, plants aren't going to be using the amount of water indoors as they do outdoors. There's no airflow, there's no sort of high temperatures, and the soil just doesn't dry out as quick. Right, so that is just a small selection of what's left to bring in. And the bigger the pot, the less I enjoy pulling it about. So this is sort of stuck at the back of the border, but it is in a big pot. So I'm going to be lifting that out. Right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more winter prep stroke protection videos.